Word. So we got another one today. This time we're going a little bit further back in history. Back to is it the late 50s or the early 60s? I want to say the late 50s for the Deadly Mantis. Yeah. So this is one of those classic black and white horror films in an age where they were basically taking an animal, making it huge, and then it just attacks everything. And it's a menace because it's massive. So Praying Mantis did not avoid that stereotype for 50s horror. So first thing I want to say is I used a streaming service for this because I can't find it anywhere. DVDs are... I can't find a copy anywhere. But used a streaming place, I think it was called Fossum, like F Awesome or whatever. And I gotta say, like, they have a decent selection of films, but man, are there a lot of commercials or ads or whatever you want to call them. Like, holy hell. In like, I think the movie's like an hour and 30 minutes or something like that. There were 36, like, minute-long unskippable ads. So that was brutal, and that kind of soured my experience. So I'm going to try to not, have that affect my rating of the movie. Anyway, that aside, that's just your little bonus streaming service review. So it's F Awesome. Again, if you're fine with like watching commercials and ads and stuff, it has a good selection. So, I mean, that's cool. But it's like, I would almost argue it's like more than TV. Like every 10 minutes on the nose, there's like a span of like 4 to 6 ads. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. I just found it irritating. So as usual, spoiler alert for this movie that is literally more than half a century old at this point, but in case you haven't seen it, which a lot of people probably haven't, to be fair, I will be talking about the movie, the events of the movie, the end of the movie, etc. So if you want to see the movie and you don't want it spoiled by me in a really unprofessional, unscripted way, then don't watch this video. Alright, moving forward. So we start off, we've got a scene in Antarctica. They show on a map, there's a volcano or something on an island off the coast of Antarctica. And they're like, for every action, there is an equal, an opposite reaction. So then they zoom up to Greenland, where there's like an ice shelf falling off the coast into the water. And exposed is the Deadly Mantis. Cue the credits and the title sequence. Very, very nice. So yeah, we start off there. They go into this big spiel about explaining how radar works and stuff. I mean, if it's in the 50s, it had been around for a while, but I guess the general population doesn't really know much more. They explain like the 3 lines. They have like the Pine Tree line, which is it's across the Canadian and U.S. border. Then they have the Mid Canada line, which is up going across the top of the Prairie Provinces in BC and in between the territories. And then they have the Dew line, which is distant early warning. So that's right up at the Arctic Circle. Fun fact: distant early warning is a Rush song. Since I'm mentioning Canada briefly, throw that in there. Oh no, I got a Cthulhu in my throat again, son of a bitch. Anyway, yeah, so they show that, and then they go up to this base, like, far up north. It's an American base, so it must be in Alaska, but unless we had bases that were operated by the U.S. in, like, Nunavut, or I guess it would have been the Northwest Territories back then. I don't really know. So, anyway, it's an American base up in the Arctic, in what I can only assume is Canada, because of the trajectory of the Mantis. I have to assume that. And there's a plane crash. They go investigate this plane crash. There's weird tracks in the snow, and they are like, that's too short to be like a ski plane or whatever. And they look, and it looks like it has like 3 prongs. So I guess mantis toes. So they go back to the base, and they're trying to figure this out. And there's a bunch of like things that happen in the Arctic. There's like an Inuit village that's attacked, and they find the tracks there. And then there's another plane crash that finally the colonel of this marine base, Colonel Parkman, he calls the scientist guy who studies prehistoric things mainly, but is basically your go-all-to expert for anything in this movie. He's just, I guess, really, really smart. I don't know how they assume it's prehistoric right off the bat. I think they explain it. I don't remember, I'll be honest, because there was a lot of commercials. But, so he flies up there with his... I thought it was the girlfriend, but clearly not, because there's a romance that develops later. But flies up there with his photographer / sidekick, Marge, and they go investigate, and they take pictures, and they find this weird, like, triangular kind of shaped thing, and they assume it's a bone. And... Okay, no, so they find the bone, and that's why they call the doctor, because they assume it's like a dinosaur bone, and they're wondering, like, what's going on? Why is this? Were they transporting that? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so he and lady go fly up there, and he goes and takes a look at it, and he's like, first thing... Oh, and this really irritated me, because it was a scientific inaccuracy. The first thing he says is, well, we can rule out it's not an animal, because all animals have an internal skeleton. Wrong! Insects are animals. Jellyfish are animals. Sponges are animals. So that was annoying, but it's a movie in the 50s. Like, you can expect them to do their research, right? So, I don't know. Maybe in the 50s they didn't count animals as all living things that aren't plants or bacteria or whatever. But anyway, that was annoying. But then they start, he's looking at it, and he's like, it could be cartilage or whatever. We'll have to examine it. There's some fluid on it, do some tests. The one thing that's coming to mind is an insect, because of just the way that the structure of it is. There's no internal skeleton, it's an external, blah, blah, blah. They do the tests, they get the results. Yeah, it's an insect. So he's thinking, okay, well, it looks like it could be like a spur, maybe from the leg of one of them or something like that. He's thinking, okay, grasshopper, cricket, beetle. I mean, most of those things, beetle he mentions later, but he mentions grasshopper, cricket, and he's like, but those aren't carnivorous. There were no bodies at these sites. So whatever this was, assuming it was an insect, not an animal, an insect, because they're different apparently, it ate them, so it's carnivorous, which lends him to the theory based on, I guess, him just figuring it out. He comes to the conclusion that it's a praying mantis, and he goes into details about the mantis and how it's like one of the most voracious carnivores in the insect universe, which is true, actually. And I would argue in all of the animals, it's probably the most voracious and horrifying. Okay, so like if every animal in the world that was predatory was the same size, I would at least want to be eaten by a mantis, because they don't always go for your head. They'll just eat small parts of you until you're gone, and they'll eat your whole... It would not be a fun way to go. So these people in the plane crash, you got my sympathy, guys. That's brutal. Yeah, so anyway, they figure that out, and then the colonel has a meeting with, it's in Colorado Springs, I guess, like the head of NORAD or something, the head of the radar, everything to do with North America is in Colorado Springs. I can't remember the name of the base. But yeah, there's a general there, General Ford. He calls, our Colonel, oh my god, Colonel Parkland calls General Ford, and they examine this piece because they have like top scientists there to work on it and stuff, and then yeah, it's an insect, whatever, mounted mantis. Then they start noticing that its trajectory is heading south. So he right away thinks, the doctor guy, his name's Ned. So Ned right away thinks it's going south. It's probably heading to South America. The problem with that being is if it flies over like New England maritime area, the warm Gulf Stream would probably attract it to that area. So they have to monitor where it's going. They try intercepting it with jets. They launch rockets at it. And it hits it, and it goes below the clouds. And they're like, we hit it, but we don't know if it's down. And no, it's not down. Obviously, it's not down. There's a really cool scene where the Mantis flies over Washington, D.C. And I actually just I did a road trip, and I ended up going through Washington, D.C. So it was kind of cool seeing these landmarks with like a giant praying mantis on them. There's a scene, I would argue it's probably iconic. I don't know like how big of a cult hit the Deadly Mantis is, but if it is like a cult classic, I would assume that it's an iconic image of the Washington Monument with the mantis like perched, like climbing up the top of it. It's actually really cool. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Anyway, it flies past Washington, flies over like Philadelphia, Baltimore, on its way to Newark. So they have all these artilleries firing at it. Oh shit! Yeah, okay. I forgot to mention. So as it's flying south, they get a call from the Mid-Canada border, which is obviously manned by a Canadian base. Now, the accent, they gave him the worst accent I've ever heard in my life to represent a Canadian. It was a very American-sounding attempt at a British accent, complete with like calling them old chap and stuff. And then they throw A at the end of it, and it's like, okay, you guys literally did no research, but it was endearing. I'm not offended as a Canadian. I'm enthralled and appreciative of how ridiculous it was. Knowing how, that we don't have even close to a British accent. But that, anyway, I thought that was very amusing, so putting that back there. Anyway, back to the story. So the Mantis flies over that, artillery's hitting it. They go send, I think they're F-100s or whatever, Super Sabres or whatever jet they have at the time. They're top of the line ones to intercept it. Their rockets hit it. It's wounded, but it's not down. It ends up taking out one of the jets, which, you know, for a creature that doesn't have any projectiles and just like, that's pretty impressive. So go Mantis, good job. I'm proud of you, bud. Takes down the jet and then basically flies into the Manhattan Tunnel that connects like New Jersey and New York or whatever, I guess, to either rest and heal, or maybe it went there to die. I'm not sure, but they clearly say that it's wounded. So if they leave it in the tunnel and they got smoke going in there and they're saying like we should probably just leave it to die or whatever. Of course, Ned and Colonel Parkland and General Ford are like, no, we gotta kill this thing. So they keep smoking it out, so they have some cover as they're approaching it, because this thing is seeing people way before we're seeing it somehow. It's like fucking massive. Excuse my language, but so they got the smoke going. They all have these like biohazard suits. I guess they can breathe, I'm assuming, but and they have these like special chemical mines that they're going to use on the Mantis when they find it. And the scene in the tunnel is actually really cool too. Like, again, you take it with a grain of salt. It's like 50s, 60s special effects, but like there's like crunched cars and like the way they have the Mantis kind of like hiding in a nest that it made out of all these like destroyed vehicles. It's cool. I liked it a lot. That scene was neat. Anyway, the Mantis gets up and like charges, and they throw one mine and it explodes, and they hear it still roaring through the explosion and stuff, so it's not dead. They're backing up, they're firing at it with their rifles. They throw another mine into it, boom, it's quiet for a second, then oh well, it's still not dead. So they fire at it again, blah blah blah. They throw the last mine, and this one lands pretty much right under the thing and explodes and kills the Mantis. It's dead now, or it's dying rather. It's like its last breaths or whatnot. And honestly, I couldn't help but feel sorry for the thing, because like this is again one of those movies from the 50s where they take a creature and make it big. Like, it's just a creature. Like, it's not some demonic entity. It's not an evil, malevolent beast. It's not a hell god or anything crazy like that. It's just a big creature that used to exist and is freaking out, doesn't know where the hell it is, can't get proper nourishment, because like the biggest things that it's seeing are people, which are tiny, so it probably ate like dinosaurs or something, or I don't know what they're gonna say, but yeah, so it slowly dies and collapses, and then it's motionless. And I guess Marge is feeling the same way I am, because they're like, well, there you go, you can take all the pictures you want of it now, because she was like a reporter or something, or she does like a magazine for Ned's museum or university. I'm not really sure what it is, but I guess they put out like a monthly magazine or something. So there's your cover shot, go for it. And they're all laughing because it's dead, and they're all happy, and she's like, I don't know what's so funny. And they're like, oh, go take your pictures. So she goes up and she's about to take some pictures and whatnot, and all of a sudden the Mantis arm slowly goes up and it's like almost lands on her, and I believe it's Colonel Parkland rushes and like gets her out of the way before it hits her and whatever. And Ned's just like, she's like, I thought it was dead, and he's like, oh, it is. Ned, he's like, it is. Those are just reflexes. Like, trust me, it's dead, and it is. And then, yeah, what happens after that? Oh, they throw in the romance. I forgot about that. So there's a romance between Parkland and Marge, and they like make out in front of this dead Mantis. It's like, okay, sure, why not? And it's definitely a movie of its time, because all the interactions of like the soldiers in the Arctic base who've never seen a woman, and like even Colonel Parkland, who is, I think, supposed to be portrayed kind of as a gentleman, is a little bit pushy. I mean, she's into it too, but like if she's even slightly hesitating, he's just like, come on. And I thought that was kind of icky, but I mean, different time. I'm not going to fault the movie for it. I'm not saying it's their way to be, but that was interesting. And then like when she's in the Arctic base at the beginning of the movie, and all the guys are like, damn, you know, and it's like, okay, like she's right there. I don't know. That was a bit icky, but again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not going to let it ruin the movie. It's a thing of the times. Whatever. But yeah, that was the movie. So it dies and they make out, and the end. And again, I can't help but feel sorry for this creature a little bit, because it didn't ask to be there. It's freaking out. It's in an environment like a city at the Arctic. Mantis wouldn't know what the Arctic is. Like, come on. So, I mean, props to it for surviving as long as it did, despite how huge it is and whatever. It's still, like, frozen. So, I mean, I don't know. One thing I will praise the movie on, however, is, again, despite, like, the early, like, the mid or late 50s, I think it was. What year was this? I really should have looked this up. I want to say 50 something, but it might have been 60 something. It really doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is the special effects were actually pretty decent. Like the design of the Mantis itself, I thought was actually really good. Like the details on I guess it's a puppet or an animatronic or something. It's solid. Like the only thing that's missing is antennae, sorry. But I mean, I can understand that, because to make it move like a real mantis, if it just had like them sticking, I don't know. It was a creative choice, but it was fine. It didn't detract from it. The design of its head, its body, its wings, its arms, everything. It was, sorry, I've got hiccups apparently. It was really good. I really like the design. The only other mantises I can think of in movies are like from the old Showa Godzilla series. They have giant mantises called Kamacuras, and I think those are cool too, but the design of the Deadly Mantis, I think, beats those for sure. I don't know. It just was a really, really good, well-designed puppet. Or animatronic or whatever it is. So, there you go. Now, what do I rate it? So, this is a tough one, because again, I have to take into mind, you know, the year it was made. It's not going to be up to par with a lot of modern movies. But then again, knowing a lot of modern movies, it was a lot better than a lot of modern movies. But then again, there's some icky things with like the way men interact with women and stuff. But again, I have to look at it as that's the time period, you know. So it's kind of a tricky one to rate these older movies. Wow. English is definitely not a Canadian's first language, so take note, 1950s movie directors, because I apparently can't speak English. But I'm gonna have to give it. It was a little bit generic for one of these movies. The only thing that really pushed it as more remarkable than the other giant insert animal of the period is the design of the creature was really good. So I'm going to give it a 6.82. A 6.82. It's decent. It's not phenomenal. It is worth watching though, just because, again, like these older movies, there's something special about them. They've got their own vibe, their own feel to them. It's just a completely different way of making a movie, directing it, the way the lines are delivered. It's neat. And like I said, the design was great. There are some really good scenes, like the Washington scene was really good. There's another scene where it attacks a base up in the Arctic that's pretty well done. So yeah, that's my rating. I would say check it out for sure. If you can find it on any other streaming service besides this Fossum or F-Awesome or whatever it is, try to do that. Because the ads, I'm okay with ads here and there. Like I've watched Tubi and like Plex and that kind of stuff and Roku, but like the amount of ads and how frequent they were on this service was just a bit too much for me. So I don't think I will be watching any movies on that again. So if you can find it on anything else, if you can find a DVD copy of it, yeah, definitely watch it. Or if you can, you know, whatever, people pirate. If you can download it, download it. I mean, let's be real, people do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So watch it, but don't watch it on this service, because it's good if you watch it in general, but it's not good enough to put up with that many commercials or ads or whatever. Just it's not worth it. So yeah. Anyway, that's my review. I will be doing some more older movies down the line too, going to the black and white era. I want to do Nosferatu as well, and Creature from the Black Lagoon and stuff like that. That'll be cool. So I'm trying to hit as many eras of film as I can. I have also decided on an official schedule that I want to try to stick to. I'm gonna incorporate the tried and true Jenna Marbles every Wednesday and Saturday, or whatever she used to do. Well, anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. Wednesday and Saturday will be new videos. I may change the date a little bit. Like for Christmas, I'm gonna release one on Christmas Day instead of whatever day it really is. Maybe it is Wednesday, I don't even know. But yeah, for themed ones, I'll probably just throw them in there at whatever date they are. But I'm gonna mostly stick to that schedule if you guys care at all. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Oh god, this is getting long. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling and we'll leave it at that. All right, take her easy.